Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And welcome again. If you guys enjoyed the Night of Champions prediction show yesterday, I've got some news, and it's good news. Josh and I are back for the Double or Nothing predictions for tomorrow night, Sunday, on pay-per-view, AEW, Double or Nothing from Las Vegas, 9 matches total on the card. Interesting card. Had a very interesting and lengthy discussion with Josh Isenberg across this entire card. Interesting talk about CM Punk towards the end. We got into a lot with believability and credibility of certain stars. Is Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, are they too much? Is it too much for these guys to be there? FTR versus TNA, a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting topics we combed over in this episode. Had a great time talking with him, as always, doing predictions for these shows. Great weekend coming up. I'm sure Night of Champions was great yesterday. But, of course, recording this before the show happens, I don't know exactly who won, but I predicted AJ Styles as world champion. Hopefully that came to fruition, but aside from that, got a great another pay-per-view coming up tomorrow night, AEW, Double or Nothing. Myself, Juice Springsteen, Josh Isenberg, run down the whole thing. Great talk. So, without further ado, once again, the Double or Nothing predictions between me and Josh Isenberg. And this is the second half of the Juice Box featuring Josh Isenberg PLE PPV prediction show. I am so excited to do this with Josh. We have had him on for a few prediction shows, and it's kind of been a tradition now. And we did the Night of Champions prediction show, and that dropped yesterday. And now, with a Sunday pay-per-view on the horizon, we give you Double or Nothing presented by AEW. 9 matches. Looking forward to this one. A lot of stuff to talk about. There's people that aren't even going to be announced for this show that we will be discussing. First thoughts whenever I tell you Double or Nothing this Sunday.
Oh, man, my first thoughts are interesting because you have a card that has a lot of talent on it, but you also have a card that does not have a lot of big names on it. So, my first thought, and I've been very vocal on social media with this, is you don't have some of your hottest acts on a pay-per-view when you have a pay-per-view once every 3 months. You don't have the Acclaimed on this card for a tag team championship. Instead, you have Jeff Jarrett, who, mind you, Jeff has done a great job at getting heat. I get that. And I know, a face tag team versus a face tag team to hurt the Acclaim if they potentially lose to FTR. But you have the Acclaim not on the card. You have Christian Cage, who, hey, Christian's been a great heel, but we'll talk about that match. A big disconnect for me. It's just, it hasn't been what it could be. And I think Wardlow's gotten to a point where he needs to find credible opponents. I mean, Hobbs was a good one for him because based on their size. So I think that it's very top heavy in terms of matches. I think they also could say that they have a triple main event with 3 matches. But then the others, they're going to be not the strongest card of all time.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this is a super strong card, but I would say it's a little top heavy. I'm looking forward to a lot of the stuff on this thing, and you picked some good plot holes in the whole thing. No Acclaimed, but I don't hate that. Take some time away from them. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, and everybody loves the Acclaimed. I'm sure they'll be back in the thick of it as we go forward. I kind of agree with you with Wardlow as well, because it's bizarre that Christian gets this match instead of Luchasaurus. So
yep.
We'll dive into that. Let's just dive into it. I'm going to go from the Wikipedia page, but I'm not going to go from bottom to top because they have pretty big matches that were just announced as the bottom of it. So I'm just going to kind of dive through and pick apart some of the ones that might not mean as much in the grand scheme of things first, and then we'll get to the heavy hitters. Let's start with the women's titles. Let's start with the TBS title. This is Jade Cargill, who I believe just surpassed 500 days as TBS champion, versus Taya Valkyrie. I don't hate that finally maybe we're getting a credible challenger for Jade Cargill. I still find it, hard to believe that she could lose, though. That being said, I wouldn't hate to see Taya walk away with this thing. Your thoughts? Because I think Jade's just going to take this and continue.
Yeah, Jade's going to take this and continue. And I've seen a lot of great Taya matches. But interestingly enough, on Dynamite, when she faced Lady Frost, too, I think Lady Frost is a really good performer, too. I've seen her many times in the Pittsburgh scene, even in Erie. I think I saw her a few years ago. Know of her husband. Really good performers who just haven't cracked that that television of AEW really until now, or WWE aside from squash matches. But I really think that when I saw that match, even my wife said this. She goes, that tall, blonde girl, which talking about Taya, it looks like she's thinking of every move before the move happens. And for somebody who's not a huge wrestling fan, who's only been a wrestling fan for a couple of years, I thought that was very interesting because I went back and watched the match because it wasn't a long match. With commercial break, I think it was like 8 or 9 minutes. And I agreed. And I didn't love the fact that I knew everything was coming from Taya, and it just looked like she was thinking before executing, which it didn't seem smooth. But I've seen her so many times in good matches, in the independent scene, in Lucha, where I think that she made herself credible then, and people from AEW know her then, not recently. Right? Because they're hardcore fans. They know when anybody from outside of the AEW bubble comes in, if they're credible, they'll get behind them. So I think that people have gotten behind her, but I still think that she's a good opponent for Jade. But I think Jade, again, 6-7 minute match. I think she just cruises through this. I don't think that there is somebody right now on the AEW roster that should beat Jade Cargill.
I tend to agree with you on that, and I like that this is finally a more credible challenger than she's had in the past. But I do think Jade just kind of takes this one like she has the previous and walks away as your champion.
Yep.
Let's go into the AEW Women's World Title, and we've got Jamie Hayter versus Toni Storm. Now, there's a rumor that Jamie Hayter is injured, and that could throw a wrench into these plans. Do you see Toni Storm taking this? Do you see Jamie retaining? Do we see anybody get involved here? Britt or the Outcasts? What are your thoughts on this contest?
So I think Toni Storm wins because I think Jamie Hayter is hurt. I think that that's a little bit more serious, or potentially more serious. More serious than I think people are trying to lead it on to believe. And we haven't seen a lot of Jamie on TV, which leads me to believe that there is something a little bit more. And I think that she loses dirty because I don't think she has Britt Baker in her corner, because Britt's consumed with another storyline that I think she might try to insert herself in. So that also could be a catalyst for the potential split between Jamie and Britt. Whenever they want to do that Jamie was always there for Britt when Britt was champion, or when Britt was, feuding with Saraya or whoever else. But then Britt hasn't really been there for Jamie. So I think that's a nice little piece, a little nugget that you can build that storyline together. And if Jamie's hurt, I want her to get better, because I do think that when you look at the women that they brought into AEW, I've always been a Toni Storm fan. I've always liked Ruby Soho. I'm cool with Saraya. So I've always thought Toni had that star power behind her. And if we want to go forward with the AEW Women's Champion, Thunder Rosa never lost that championship. Toni Storm got that interim title and became the official champion. That's a storyline that they have to revisit when Thunder Rosa is healthy, which I think she's close to being healthy, as we saw her back on television a few weeks ago. So that could be something that you could use for All In, and Toni Storm being an international star. I know Jamie Hayter's from there. If Jamie Hayter's healthy, they have a lot of pieces that they can move around to make things work. But I think it starts with Toni Storm becoming champion at Double or Nothing.
And once again, I agree with you. Tony Storm,
Quit
I
agreeing with
think,
me, Juice. Come on now. Have your own original thought.
I have an original thought every single week, and you're not out here every single week, so this is my chance to see what how accurate we both are. Tony Storm, though, yeah, I do think she wins this, takes the title from Jamie. Hopefully, Jamie can get back to being 100%. I love the little wrinkle with Britt where she had, Jamie was thick and thin for Britt, all throughout that title reign. Like easily when Britt was champion, yet Jamie was getting, the bigger reaction and the more heartfelt reaction. Even though they loved Britt, it was like Jamie is the star. That's why they gave her, the championship. Yeah. And that's how we've been going forward. And I agree. I do think Britt's going to go and potentially get involved in the unsanctioned match, considering it's unsanctioned and anything can happen. Why wouldn't she want to get involved where she's been a pivotal portion of that storyline to begin with? That being said, Saraya was the one that beat down Britt, so I could see her getting involved in this. She could get involved in both matches, to be quite honest with you. She's got irons in the fire for sure. But I would like to see Tony win. And you mentioned Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa is supposedly going to be one of the stalwarts here on the new AEW Collision show, which we will be discussing throughout this program as well, because that is the not so big elephant now. It is definitely happening. Collision is definitely a new Saturday night show with Thunder Rosa potentially being a part of it. And you mentioned All In. I could see any combination of Tony, Jamie Hayter, or Saraya, or Britt. Honestly, any combination, Thunder Rosa, of those women. Maybe a 3-person, 4-person match for All In. I could see it.
Yeah, I can see that too. I think Thunder. Well, heck, if you have Thunder in there, you got to go back to Britt and Thunder too, right? Like it's so funny because Thunder Rosa didn't even really compete against Tony, but there's a story there, and you got to have Thunder and Britt back at it. And I think that feud, because of how personal it got and because of the real life animosity, doesn't need a title, And
No.
it's
and they
one
could use
thing
a feud that's not a championship.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was just going to say the exact same thing, Juice. Like every wrestling promotion's women's feuds are based around a title. This does not need to be based around a title. So that's a great opportunity for them. And when Collision does happen, it's on TNT. So, obviously my ideal thought process is the TNT champion is kind of like their world champion, right? Wardlow can be that Saturday night stalwart. You can have the AEW women's champion on there, which could be Tony, whomever, and have Jade as a TBS champion on Dynamite because obviously TBS has Dynamite. So they've done a really good job at setting themselves up for that split inevitably that we're seeing here, in less than a month. But in regards to the women, a lot of moving pieces, but a lot of good moving pieces, I think.
I love we ripped apart and we have been, rightfully so, we got a SmackDown and Raw women's champion defending those titles while that person's on the opposite brand. And it's been a month and they're still doing the same thing. Meanwhile here, maybe intentional, maybe not. But yeah, you can get a TNT champion as your, quote, main guy or biggest title you'll see at least every week on Collision, which I could see being a fantastic thing for Wardlow or whoever is champion. And, if it's MJF or whoever, the AEW World Champion could float through any show, and I would not have a problem with that. And with the women, you already have the TBS title, and now the Dynamite's on TBS. It's almost too good to be random. It's almost like they planned that. Genius if that's the case. They could have a women's title on both and a men's title on both that mean a lot. Definitely. So I really like that, and I agree. I think Toni Storm is going to take that title. Let's go to the 6-man tag. This is a little random, but we got the Hardys finally, back together on pay-per-view with Hook, which is crazy because didn't the Hardys work with Taz a few times in WWE in a 6-man?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's insane. And now we get the Sons of Billy Gunn with my favorite theme music almost in all of wrestling with Ethan Page. 6-man tag. If the Hardys win, Matt Hardy will own Ethan Page's contract. Don't know really what that means, but I'm excited to see Jeff Hardy back in the ring, and I gotta think that the Hardys will win this one. What say you?
Yeah, the Hardys and Hook win this match. I think it's good to see Jeff back. That's the big story here. I've always been a Hardy Boys fan growing up, and then obviously developing, somewhat of a close relationship with Matt, not as much Jeff. But I think that Matt has done a really good job at remaining relevant, even when he doesn't get the TV time. And I think it's a combination of his nostalgia. And I also think it's a combination of his usage of social media still. I mean, he was really the first, him and Zack Ryder, I think, were really the first two guys that utilized social media to get themselves over even more. Matt, outside of the WWE umbrella, getting over via social media, Ryder, Cardona, when he was in there, in a True Long Island story. So there's a lot of similarities, I think, between the careers of Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy, although Jeff has been viewed as the guy that's been, the main event talent. But it's funny because Matt's always been the constant.
Yeah, Matt has carved his own niche when, it's happened a million times. You, alongside me, and people listening to this have watched wrestling for God knows how long. And how many times when a tag team's coming through, it's, well, which one's going to be the Marty Jannetty? Which is going to be the less successful? And somehow, some way, with the Hardys, it took a little while, but once they started doing the tables and the ladders and chair stuff, Jeff clearly became, the guy. He was doing all the crazy moves. He was always there. And then Matt was the first, I think, to really become a single star with a character, V1 and all those things. And like you said, he kind of made his own way. Jeff became WWE champion and was even at the top, as the top guy in WWE. Matt Hardy had a couple of big programs, Edge, and he had some programs against Jeff. But like you said, really carved his way outside of WWE when he became, the Ultimate Deletion and all the stuff online. And it was just genius stuff. And he made sure that he stayed relevant even if he wasn't with his brother or if his brother wasn't even on TV. He had to find something. And that's why they're still here 20 years later. And I'm glad that they're both here. I really think that the Hardys and Hook will win this one. I don't know what that really sets up going forward, but that's what happens when you have 9 matches.
Yeah, a nice 10-minute match, spot fest. Yeah. Jeff gets a few of his spots there, and we're good to go. Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into I guess we're getting to multiple main events here because I think starting after this match we'll get some interesting stuff, but I am intrigued by this. The Blackjack Battle Royal. This is a 21-man battle royal for the AEW International title. Now, if you're a viewer of Dynamite every week, you might say, I'm so tired of hearing Orange Cassidy's music beginning almost every single episode.
Every single one.
However, damn it, he's having good matches and he's defending the title, and I like that. So now we get this interesting little, okay, I'm going to be a part of the Battle Royal. This is something you don't normally see. Yeah. But in this Battle Royal include, now, I'm not sure if this is all 21. I'm assuming there's going to be some entrants. I guess we can count along. Orange Cassidy, Ricky Starks, Butcher, Blade, Bandito, Commander, Lee Moriarty, Big Bill, Ari Daivari, Tony Nese, Chuck Taylor, Trent Beretta, Kip Sabian, Ray Phoenix, Penta El Zero Miedo, Swerve Strickland, Brian Cage, Jay White, me Robinson, Keith Lee, and Dustin Rhodes. So
me Robinson.
he stole it. He stole it. So it seems like that's all 21. If I'm missing a count or whatever, I was doing it on my hands. This is what happens when you do a show like mine. But I think all those guys are the whole match.
Yep, it is. Yeah.
Now, is this a normal battle royal, or is this going to be like if it's down to one guy and one guy, they do a match? Because I'm pretty sure it's just a regular battle royal, right?
I think it's a regular battle royal. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a bizarre way to do it. You got to think Orange Cassidy's the last guy, alongside one other person. Who, out of the people I mentioned, do you think would be best served to go against Orange Cassidy as the final guy? Because let's think of it like this. Assume that this person who is last with Orange Cassidy doesn't win. They'll probably get a shot at the title in a one-on-one match. Who would that be if you were booking this match?
It's got to be a heel, right? Because Cassidy is incredibly popular. So looking at, I mean, Jay White is right in front of the graphic. Him and Big Bill, those two guys right there immediately. And Big Bill is a guy that, man, they got to use him. Like, damn, they got to use him somehow. He's just so good and he's so marketable.
So big.
He's so big. I actually think Cassidy, this is a good opportunity for him to drop the title. And
Yeah,
I could see some shenanigans
Book yourself
happening.
to a battle royal and lose.
And some shenanigans where Jay White gets help from Hugh Robinson to potentially win, So I'm going to just go out on a limb and think Jay White wins this. This makes him important, and I think they need to make him important because he hasn't done much since his debut, and he should be viewed as a big deal, and he's not.
And what's the next pay-per-view for AEW after this?
There you go, yeah.
Forbidden Door 2. So
yes, ma'am.
You're definitely gonna have some New Japan guys all over this card. What better way? Hey, you could have Jay White win this and have the rematch at the pay-per-view. That'd be a killer match. You gotta believe.
Yep.
So I would take Jay White.
You're taking Jay White too? Come on.
What? I mean,
take Daivari, you coward. You won't take Daivari.
I'm gonna take
the Blade.
I was gonna say the Butcher.
Hey-o.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty, if you will. We've got, 3 more title matches. Let's go to a non-title match, but this is going to be an important one. It was finally made official, although it's an unsanctioned match, so I don't know how official any of these rankings really are. Adam Cole, Chris Jericho, a legend versus gonna be legend. Adam Cole's been a wrestler for almost 20 years now, if not 20 years. So these guys have been doing it for a very long time. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Sabu is going to be the special guest enforcer. Out of left field came Sabu to help enforce this match. I loved that Taz was on commentary for it because Taz and Sabu had a legendary feud in ECW in 96, 97. So that little wrinkle I love. However, outside of Chris Jericho and Sabu working together at certain points in ECW, I don't know where he factors in. That being said, I think this is going to be a fun brawl. I'm assuming that the pin can take place. Maybe it's not anywhere, I guess, but the pin will take place in the ring. So, but I think they're going to wrestle around the arena. You got to think the poker chips, if you will. I'm sure that'll happen. But I guess you need Sabu in there to go against the other JAS members. However, now is Kyle O'Reilly still injured?
From what we've heard, yes, but I don't know when he'd be medically cleared. I mean, a month or two ago, I still think that they said he was injured. I can see him returning and helping fend off the JAS as a nice little wrinkle. I mean, realistically, I see this happening shenanigans until Adam Cole picks up a victory, because Adam Cole winning this, in my mind, gives him MJF next. I think that's where you have to go. I think that's the money feud that you really need. And we'll talk about the 4 Pillars match here in a little bit, but that match would have a lot of juice to it, because they are really just 2 completely different people, right? Like, you have Adam Cole coming back from an injury. He's not this cocky, arrogant person. Well, he is, but not in the way that MJF is.
Yeah, it's
exactly. And he's probably the most likable and the most popped guy in terms of reaction from a face perspective in the company.
And I agree. And we're not going to get into that 4-way just yet. But people have been critical of Chris Jericho being in these spots where,
But there's a reason why he's in these spots. He's Chris Jericho.
That's what I was going to say. The people that complain are saying, oh, Chris Jericho just wants a rub. But that's the thing. He doesn't. He doesn't need it. And every person that wrestles with him gets the rub is better off with the match. So to me, Jericho could lose an unsanctioned match. It doesn't hurt him at all. Hell, Cole could win the match and then get beaten down. And it still, work for all parties involved. I would wager we see Britt Baker here at some point, potentially taking out some JAS members to try to get to Cole, maybe getting stifled by a Saraya or what have you. But I think it's going to be a lot of chaos. I'm going to honestly think this is going to be played in a similar realm to the San Juan Street fight, where there's just a lot of chaos, a lot of stuff going on. And I agree. I really think that Adam Cole would be the best potential challenger going forward against MJF. So I think he needs a win here. And the part of that I agreed with the most is that Adam Cole, like you said, he is cocky, but as a babyface, he's beloved for being cocky. And right now he is a huge babyface because he came back from a really potentially career-threatening or ending injury to be where he is now. So it's been a long road for him.
Yeah.
And, no disrespect to Jack Perry or Darby or Sammy, but Adam Cole and MJF would be, to me, one of the first true AEW main event like matches with the AEW title on the line with guys that are like more believable than not. With the pillars, I buy Sammy. It's tougher to buy Darby, and it's really tough for me to buy Jack Perry at times, purely with his promo work. In the in-ring,
right now, yeah.
But if you give me across AEW's landscape, of who's in there and who's going in singles matches, I'm not counting Danielson or Claudio or Hank or Kenny. Adam Cole is the guy, I think, to go next against MJF as MJF is champion. So I see Adam Cole taking this, and I think it's going to be a hell of a brawl. Let's get into another interesting match here. This is a title match. This is a ladder match. Wardlow with Mr. Glock himself, Arn Anderson, versus Christian Cage with Luchasaurus in tow. I question why Luchasaurus doesn't get this match. However, as soon as I say that, I'm also realizing, okay, but who else would be in a ladder match to put some stakes to this? Why wouldn't Christian be in the ladder match to try to prove himself? And who better to beat Christian in his own game than Wardlow? Like, it makes sense, and this is how you can maybe get Christian away from Luchasaurus by, Christian getting, some crazy bump, I'm assuming, could happen here in this ladder match. And Wardlow just won the title in April. I think we're both in agreement that he could potentially be a really strong candidate to defend the AEW TNT title on the TNT show that's going to be now happening in June, Collision. I think it's a great idea. I think, again, you could get Powerhouse Hobbs. He was advertised as being a part of that new show. I think you could have a little bit of more gas with him and Wardlow as two Haas guys going for the title. I think this is a little bit of a stopgap, but it's a pretty damn important stopgap considering it's a ladder match with one of the most legendary ladder match performers in the history of the business. I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing if Christian's going to wear a tank top, not a tank top, but a turtleneck during this match. So we'll see.
I'm not going to bet he's wearing a turtleneck, but yeah.
No?
I don't think so. I'd like for him to wear his little see-through shirt that he did in the late 90s, early 2000s. That was his look.
Could you imagine?
Oh
he brings that out. Looks like a member of Pretty Deadly.
This is going to be I love Pretty Deadly, but this is going to be an interesting match because I think that Wardlow is obviously going to win. You get Christian, who is one of the best at ladder matches, but it's been a while since he's been in since he's really been in a ladder match aside from like a casino Money in the a Money in the Bank or a one-on-one ladder match or a tag team ladder match. There's always been multiple people around him to kind of help him with ladder matches, but not to say that he can't do it anymore. But when you look at this match, I think there's going to be, the one spot where Luchasaurus is trying to help Christian up the ladder to get him the championship, and then Wardlow just makes a big move and could potentially destroy both of them. And I think that's really what you need to see is one super feat of strength for Wardlow. And I think we get that. But I mean, again, you said it's a stopgap match. Absolutely. There's not a ton here besides Christian coming out and staring at Wardlow, for a few weeks and then saying, oh, no, it's me who wants the title. Okay, that's fine. And again, nothing against Christian because I think Christian's one of the most disliked people on the AEW roster from a fan's perspective.
So good. He's arguably the best. I literally, outside of MJF, I don't know how many other people can get the type of heat that Christian
gets. He's just a prick. Yeah.
Christian's on a level of like Dom in regards to heat. Yeah. Like everybody hates him, and yet he can still get the promo out so concise and like perfect. He's really refined on the mic. And again, we talked about tag teams before. Edge clearly became such an incredible, legendary superstar. Christian carved his own way through TNA and all those different avenues, and now he's in AEW doing it again. And we get Christian in a ladder match in 2023. So I'm
okay with that. Yeah, and I'm okay with that. And that's exactly it. Like, we're lucky to see him in this type of stipulation. But at the end of the day, Wardlow's the guy. Wardlow's money. I think Wardlow, again, wins this match. with one big super feat of strength. And I think realistically, when you look at the future of Collision, he is one of the top 3 guys that show should be built around.
Yeah, and I think we could get Luchasaurus as the next guy, to go against him. It's written right there. I think that's might be what they are trying to attempt here. Because I like to see Luchasaurus is great. I don't know if he has been maybe injured and hasn't been able to go fully. Because other than that, I think he would be in this match potentially, unless they have plans going forward. But sidebar, I would love if Arn Anderson hit a spine buster on Luchasaurus during this match.
On Lucha, okay.
Yes, out of left field, because everybody would assume Arn's getting choke slammed or something, which I don't think his body would disintegrate if that happened. But I think if you could somehow pull, maybe a DDT, maybe not a spine buster, I don't know.
A DDT might be a little bit easier for him to execute against the 280-pound man.
Massive man. A dinosaur, literal
dinosaur, literally.
All right, let's go into the triple main event. We're going to go another title match because I think a 4-on-4 is a little bit more important. Let's go to FTR versus TNA. I love the Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal and Sanjay and Satnam. I love this, whatever this is. If this is a stable, if it's just TNA guys just like figuring out stuff to do. I am so in love with like the over-the-top 80s-ish realm that these guys present their tag team with. Like Sanjay Dutt is super over the top 80s manager. Satnam Singh is like the giant that is like, he's really like not that imposing other than his height. He looks like a really like gentle giant, yet he's just like a massive guy, so you're going to be scared of him. Jarrett and Lethal have been in the business for so long, and they know the right ways to play this. And the best part about this whole feud is that this whole feud is based on trying to befriend Mark Briscoe. And it's a sweet little storyline. Mark went through such a terrible, terrible beginning of the year. And him to, in other cases where tragedy strikes wrestling, fans are very critical, and rightfully so, of companies trying to capitalize on, that loss or only giving certain people opportunities because of that. And now I wouldn't necessarily say that it's the wrestlers that get the benefit of that fault. I think it's the creative team not having much else to do and relegating to, oh, well, this person had a tragedy, let's give them a shot. That's not what this is. I think this is a really nice little storyline where everybody wants to just have Mark Briscoe as their friend because FTR is his friend, right? But Jarrett, Lethal, and all those guys went to the Briscoe farm, a great little segment. Satnam wearing the overalls was killer. And then you get FTR, who are really Mark Briscoe's friends, but because of the tequila that got spit into their face that was brought out by Mark Briscoe, Dax hit a pile driver, a traditional move to Mark Briscoe in a traditional like 80s storyline of, I was blinded, I didn't know, which is legit.
Yeah.
But they really make you think that it's not. And Mark is the special guest referee. I can't wait. You're a big fan of gear for wrestlers. I'm excited to see the referee gear for Mark Briscoe. I feel like it's going to be a camouflaged referee shirt. I can't wait for that. And I think Mark Briscoe is going to have to make a very difficult pin. What say you?
Well, after that long and winded story, I'm going to just make it plain and simple. FTR's going to win. Come on. You can't have them drop the championships when they just won it and play flip-flop with Jarrett in his 50s and Jay Lethal. That's just a clown. I could not be more on the opposite field with you on disliking Jarrett and them. Again, Jarrett gets heat. I get it. I can't stand watching them on my TV. This is probably the most.
I love to be. I gotta.
You just like his old TNA song. Get out of here.
I was just gonna say every time it hits, I'm just like transplanted to every King of the Mountain match where you knew he was gonna win, and
every single time.
And you could do it at the end of the night. He's doing the little double like peace sign, and he's like, I won. And
then Karen Jarrett comes in. Come on. I mean, geez Louise, you gotta be kidding me.
FTR versus TNA, but I like that it serves a purpose. Like it's not just them. Like there is a story here, and I think it culminates.
Yes,
so I don't think it's going to go any further than that.
There is a story, and I guess I'll give them credit for that. But at the end of the day, it's just like this tag team. It's a storyline, good for them. But again, it goes back to just I don't understand how a lot of other tag teams are not being utilized in this spot, and Jarrett and Lethal are, and it's just, again, I don't know if I'm in the minority in that one, but it's just I want to see FTR in a great tag team wrestling match, but we're not getting that. So
that's what you think. I think this will be a solid match in ring, and I still think Jarrett and Lethal can go. I just think there's more gaga to this match than a normal FTR match because they've had the stuff with Mark Briscoe, and I do think it's going to be as simple as FTR winning. Like Mark Briscoe, I'm sure will have difficult decisions to try to pin or count the pin when Jarrett's got a pinfall, and I'm sure it'll start turning where Mark realizes who his true friends are, and he won't necessarily be biased, but he'll make the right call. And then I think we'll go forward with some stuff, hopefully with FTR and some other tag teams. But just like the Christian thing, I think it's a stopgap. I think it's just a nice little showcase for FTR. It's a showcase for Mark Briscoe to have this spot, and it just unfortunately has to go to Jarrett and Lethal when you got the Acclaimed on the sideline. But I think they'll come back in time.
I do, but and to wrap this part up, stopgap matches should not be part
Double or Nothing.
Should not be a part of one of their big 4 pay-per-views. That should be a TBS or a TNT. That should be for their TV specials. Winter is coming, or spring break, or whatever that is.
Right.
That's why I think I have a problem with a few of these matches, because we're plunking down $50-$55 to watch matches that are just stopgap matches. So that's just again from my perspective.
Well, I'm sure we'll both be wrong, and Jarrett and Lethal will win clean, and we will have to deal with another pay-per-view of these guys.
Oh, my goodness. Hope not.
All right, let's get into the final two. These two are going to be crazy. The first one, let's go to the Anarchy in the Arena match. We thought potentially Blood and Guts. I mean, hell, that could be on the table going forward. We don't really know. All they got to do is add another guy. But Danielson, Moxley, Claudio, and Wheeler Yuta, who, after losing his match recently, they scolded him in the ring for losing, taking the pin, which I love that. Versus the Elite, we have the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Adam Page finally back in the fold all together again. Throughout AEW, it is all Elite wrestling, and I think the storylines that have had the most consistency, and no matter what, somehow it comes back around, and it's like the Elite again, and like they're really great with storytelling, and I'm really thrilled now that they have adversaries, true adversaries, in the Blackpool Combat Club. Bryan Danielson as a heel is fantastic. I love Moxley and Omega's wars that they've had ever since the original Double or Nothing. They've had a story. And of course, the Young Bucks, Wheeler Yuta has grown into his own, and Claudio, I think, still has a lot of going on in this match, and it's going to take place in the arena. I think it's going to be potentially more chaotic than the unsanctioned match, and I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
Couple questions. Who wins this match? And 2, outside of Moxley, how many people bleed in this match? And how quickly does Moxley bleed in this match?
Moxley over under 4 minutes. I'm going to say under. I think he is one of 3 people that bleeds. I think him, Danielson bleed, Hangman bleeds, and then maybe one of the Jacksons. I don't know if Kenny will. Probably one of the Jacksons will take the blood for it. So I'll say 4. Actually, Wheeler Yuta loves the Crimson Mask too. So maybe all 4 of the Blackpool Combat Club bleed. So maybe 6.
All 8 of them.
All 8 of them are just doused in blood. Yeah. This is interesting because I like the Blackpool Combat Club sans Wheeler Yuta, and the only reason I say that is because all of their promos have really been about being professionals, right, and not amateurs. Well, Wheeler Yuta has, he's a lot closer to being like the Elite than he is closer to being these other 3 gentlemen who came, from the Indies, but then WWE for many, many years, and now to AEW. So he's kind of just like the redheaded stepchild, so to say. It's like, he's there, but nobody really cares for him. I think that the Elite should win this match. I think they will win this match. I think it gets to a point now where I think Tony Khan is understanding that you have these established people come into the company and they don't need to win all the time. Moxley, Danielson, Claudio do not need to win all the time. And the reason being is because they're always going to be liked by the general fan in AEW, which there's not a lot, but there's a decent amount. you got to focus on the people that brought this really to life. And the people that brought this to life were the Young Bucks, who, hey, they haven't been tag team champions for a very long time. They haven't been in main events for a while. They've been in main event storylines, but they haven't really been the spotlight. And Kenny was out for such a long time, and Hangman had his injuries in his feud with Moxley. So they really have taken a back seat for a lot of the time with Moxley, with Danielson, and MJF and people like that as well. So I think this is an opportunity for the Elite to get back to, being on the top of that mountain. And I think, the Young Bucks could be, I think it's the Young Bucks FTR in Wembley. I think that's what you got to do. I think that's the big money match that you still have there. And I also think that, you can have Omega and Hangman in singles matches that are of importance against other members of the Blackpool Combat Club, or even somebody that we might not know about. It's all about the Elite right now for me, continuing to become what they should be now after taking a back seat for such a long time.
Yeah, and I do think I agree. I think Wheeler Yuta is, kind of the outside looking in, but I think he's closer, and I think he's more believable than when he initially got in. When the initial storyline with Wheeler Yuta started, I was like, man, it was kind of like the Daniel Garcia thing. Like, you're way out of like, not their league, but I never would have expected them to pin this guy as someone to be involved here, and I do buy him more than I don't at this stage.
Sure.
But like you said, and like we had mentioned with Chris Jericho, it's a guy, guys like Danielson, all those guys, they don't need to necessarily win to one, make this a good match, or to two, to stay relevant. They could lose this match and just be pissed off on Dynamite and say, we got screwed. There's just so many avenues that are easier if they take the back seat to the Elite.
Definitely.
Well, that rhymed. And I think that the Elite, I would love to see FTR and the Bucks at Wembley, which would leave Hangman and Kenny. I think Kenny has something to go to strive for now that he had his back turned on by the invisible hand on Callis. So I think Forbidden Door has some answers for Kenny Omega. I'm not sure with Hangman what he's got going forward with him, because with 8 guys in this match, one being the Ring of Honor champion, one being a traditional tag team, one clearly going to be a huge single star after this in Kenny. A lot changes after this match, I think. I mean, they're all part of these two groups, but I think that their trajectories are all kind of a lot of different roads after this, with a Forbidden Door coming up in June, and then 2 huge shows back to back, late August, early September. So I would take the Elite here in the Standard Key in the Arena match. And again, it's such a crazy match that I don't think anybody loses any steam with a loss. So that's what I think. And again, with this new Collision show, we don't know who's going to be on that. We don't know what type of talent is going to be on any of these shows. It's really up in the air. It's exciting, but it's really up in the air. We mentioned that before with the Backlash and the draft thing, even though that really didn't change much. But now we get a new show coming in, 3 weeks that supposedly will change some things. So we'll get into that in this last match because I have an idea. We'll get there. MJF, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and Jungle Boy Jack Perry. My mom was a fan of Beverly Hills 90210, so I am a fan of Jack Perry as well. This is a 4-pillar match. I love this idea. I think the match will be great. I think 3 out of the 4 are great on the mic, or at least better than the rest. I think Darby could probably use some work, but he's got Sting to look at if he needs help. Jack Perry has kind of had to deal with it on his own for the most part. I mean, he has had Christian in the past, but it's been more or less as an adversarial role, so where he really doesn't get too much help on the mic. But I think he's working into his own. I don't think he's failed necessarily. But you got 4 of the early AEW guys. This is the Pillars match. I love this concept. I think it's pivotal. As we had stated, look, and you were critical. I could say I'm critical having Christian, Jarrett, Lethal. Some might say even with like the Hardys, just some outside, guys that not necessarily are AEW straight up, more of a transplant from another company, what have you. These 4 guys
are going to probably main event this show, and they are full-fledged AEW through and through. So that I think is great, as opposed to the guys that may not necessarily taking spots from other guys on the card, because you can't get everybody on every card every month. But I like that these guys are getting this spot. I think it's going to be a great match. I think MJF retains. I don't know who he pins. I think that's an interesting take here. And what do you think? We'll get into a little bit more after you discuss who you think is going to win.
I think he pins Sammy. I think it's because Sammy did not want to lie down for him, so he's going to end up pinning him anyway. This match is going to have a lot of great spots to it. MJF is going to do as little as possible because he has 3 other guys who are going to take the brunt of the big spots. They're all going to try to get after him, but ultimately it's going to come down to MJF sneaking through and picking up a victory. The Pillars match, the Pillars idea is a good idea. It hasn't gotten as much juice as I thought it would, and I've used that multiple times in this show. I know. But I think at the end of the day, whenever you see these 4 competing, I think the issue that I have with it is Jungle Boy, Sammy, and Darby are just very similar performers and very similar body types and very similar styles, where they rely on the high spots, which is not a problem. But when you have 3 very similar people in a 4 pillars match, it's I know what we're going to get, which is going to be a great match, but I don't believe that any of these people will end up beating MJF, which brings me to, how do you go off the air with MJF as champion?
All right. Now, before we get into that, I just want to make a quick point, because you did mention, and I'm in agreement with I don't necessarily believe that either Sammy, Darby, or Jack will win against MJF, but how they are viewed and how you view them, I look at it as this in a positive way, where you got Jack Perry is your traditional white meat babyface. You have Sammy Guevara as the natural cocky tweener. He could be either or. Darby is the outcast that could be either or, and he doesn't really have anybody as a team member on any side. He never sucks up to anybody. He's his own guy. And then MJF is the dastardly heel that everybody's chasing. I think they all have their own little lanes, and I think that's why this match will be great. And like you said, I don't think MJF really has to do a lot to really make this match what it can be and what it will be. Yeah. And I do think, AEW does this. They've done it before. It's one of their I think it's honestly one of the more, not understated, but it's happened so much that we're like almost expecting something crazy to happen when the show goes off the air. Almost previous, whenever, the NXT shows would go off the air, and like you'd see the little NXT like graphic of 2023 entertainment, and something still happens. This pay-per-view, let's get it out right now. There is one name that we have not mentioned during this entire show that is not announced on this show. He's not wrestling on this show. He might not even show up at this show, but there's no way you're going to watch Double or Nothing and not think about CM Punk and the impending potential re-debut at AEW Collision. Now unveiled, it's going to be at the United Center, June 17th. It's not a red herring. I got to be thinking CM Punk showing up there. Yep. But do you, with the pencil right now, or the pen, take the pen, would you put something, a segment, after this match ends? Now, it could be with the guy we mentioned. It could be with Adam Cole, where you kind of get ready for the next show, what have you. That's great. Or do you do the CM Punk thing, have him come out maybe against an MJF to set him up with something? Or do you just kind of keep CM Punk out of this, go with an Adam Cole, push to the next show, and leave the CM Punk stuff for a Dynamite leading into Collision? What would you do here?
I probably would either tease Punk, but making it obvious, whether it's a flag of Chicago that he wears as his logo, that pops up on the screen, or I would prefer to have him come out. I think that you need CM Punk to be announced this time because people know he's coming back, right? We knew he was coming back at the first dance, but it was never really confirmed. But even though
he hadn't been in wrestling,
exactly, yeah. But now he's coming back. Now it's like, okay, this is definitely going to happen. It's in Chicago. It's at the United Center again for the the first Collision. So, I mean, hey, when Punk won the championship, you saw MJF come back after a hiatus. So if MJF retains, what better way than Punk coming back? But you don't need to follow it up with Punk versus MJF so quickly, by the way.
No.
But I do think the only way you re-debut him, if you want to at Double or Nothing, is him coming out. Or, again, an obvious tease that he's returning without actually showing his face or his name.
Like maybe the static on the screen, like the beginning
of
like the finale.
And then have maybe like the Chicago flag waving, and people know exactly what it is,
It could be something like that, and I agree. I don't think necessarily, and you made a great point with the, how Punk won the title and the MJF of it before everything went downhill. That happened, and I thought that was, we were in for it. They had the dog collar match like they have had. There is a story there, and I think for the future you can have that. You really could look forward to that. And I agree with you on mentioning CM Punk or bringing him up, not just because he's been here before and we are like 100% sure now that he's coming to this new show, but it would behoove of AEW, like him or not, CM Punk is a needle mover for this company.
Gotta sell tickets, baby.
Yes, with multiple massive gates for the shows he has been on since he returned. A lot of stats going along with him in a positive way, showing those types of things. So to me, you're trying to sell that first collision. You're trying to sell multiple collisions. You're trying to sell more tickets going forward. It only benefits AEW to promote that CM Punk is not only going to show up, but he is now going to be a part of AEW going forward. And, he can come out to be a, quote, challenge to MJF, and MJF can choose to wrestle any other guy and duck CM Punk and duck and try to avoid him. And that could be a part of it. There's a lot of different avenues I think they could take. And I like your, the Chicago flag. I think you could do a combination of, if he's not going to be there, I think there's ways to get around it. But I think it would be, man, you want to get the wrestling world talking on a weekend where WWE has 2 shows preceding you. You want to end the weekend on a high note. You have CM Punk come out. I don't know if you can go any hotter off the air.
I don't think you can. That's what Sunday Night Ends Monday morning. People are talking more about that than Night of Champions. And that's really what they're trying to drive the narrative to, is we have this new show, and maybe, you don't say it, on Sunday, but I would not be surprised if Punk is just exclusively on Collision. And you mentioned that before the June 17th show, saying, Punk's next appearance will be June 17th at Collision. He has a lot to say, blah, blah, blah. And you can put video packages together for 2-3 weeks saying like, hey, this is why he hasn't been gone, and bleed into some real life situations that we all kind of know.
Right. We all know. And you don't really, you don't necessarily have to say what it is, because I think if you're going to do that, they could save that if they're going to do a elite thing down the line. But I've been reading that there is a potential NDA. So they might not even touch it at all, which again, that's fine too. But I do agree. I think you want to sell those tickets. You want to have, there's video of him on his Instagram doing the little rope exercises, and his arms look massive. You can do a bunch of different promo packages showing him getting ready for this, quote, second coming, as I believe they've been touting potentially this, not the first dance, but the second coming. I think you could really promote it heavily, but I think Double or Nothing is a good start.
Do you think it's ironic that Jon Moxley has mentioned their professionals and the elite or amateurs, and also saying best in the world on Dynamite, and potentially planting seeds for Punk to be a part of that group?
Of which group? The elite or the BCC?
The BCC. No, the BCC, obviously.
Could you imagine? That I could buy that. I also buy, I don't know if you caught after Dynamite went off the air, and I believe the elite mentioned something about hashing things out, or grown men can get past things, or squash things, something to that effect. So to me, it seems like things are, I mean, if Punk's coming back in, it's not like Tony Khan can just say, oh, he's coming back, and not talk to the elite. So
exactly,
I'm sure they'd have to be like, all right, like, we're probably fine with this. So if they mention something like that on air, if they realize that's what they got to do, and I'm touting this forever, there's so much money there if they just not necessarily acknowledge that there's stuff going on or whatever happened at All Out, but like, there's animosity there, and you can make it on screen, never acknowledge what really, really happened. You can kind of fudge something and make it seem on screen and have something and really get money. And I think they all understand that. So hopefully we're all in the right boat here, and they can close Double or Nothing with something fantastic. But overall, I'm really looking forward to the show, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great show just because they always deliver on pay-per-views, even if the matches are not as desirable as ones that previously. And it just comes down to, some of those big matches. How do they drive these stories? Forbidden Door is one thing, but it's really how are they going to drive these stories, to London? How are they going to put these pieces together? And again, it's the cloud that's been hanging over AEW for 8 months. Let's address and let's move forward with Punk. As much as I personally think I have some personal negative thoughts about him just on what you hear,
Right.
He's good for business, and that's all that matters, I think, at the end of the day.
And I think that's all Tony Khan wants is, a quality product that he can give. I think he knows the Elite can do it. I think he knows CM Punk has it. Like I said, the draws have been there. I think he knows that somehow he's gotten this undercurrent of just chaos, and if he can capitalize on it in a positive way, he can do what WWE sometimes can't, which is capitalize on real life in a positive way for the company and for everybody and for the fans, instead of it being a negative that you never can mention. You know.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
I think this is going to be a fun show. I think we got a great weekend of wrestling. You got Night of Champions, Battleground for NXT, Double or Nothing, 3 shows. Can't wait. Looking forward to them. Don't think I'll be able to watch them this weekend with you, Josh. Hopefully we'll get together for a future show.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And I'm sure we'll get you on for another prediction show in the future, if not another Juice Box in general. But as always, this has been a fantastic couple of shows with you. I love talking wrestling with you.
I am thirsty right now. I need my juice box. My throat's getting dry here. I'm going to do apple instead of orange, but
Okay. I'll do some more. I'll do some OJ because
pish posh
OJ at 8:30 at night. So that's what we do here at the Juice Box.
That's
but
right.
Once again, this has been Josh Isenberg. I'm Juice Springsteen. Great weekend of shows coming up. Can't wait. If you're a wrestling fan, this is the best time to be that. And couldn't say it better myself because it was me. So see you guys next week for another rendition of The Juice Box.
That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.